You're welcome to Break the Bars of Iron program. And thanks for tuning in once again. Well, today we are entering into part 4 of the live series on teachings on the concept of truth. Now, some of you haven't watched our previous episodes. I would recommend you get a chance and opportunity of watching them, because the background of a thing is important to that thing. Today, our focus is going to be on the concept of truth. Now, the concept of truth has been lost in our world system for the past 2,000 years. What people have been calling truth has been information, and they have used this information to control the very person of who you are. Now, this program here, in particular, this training here, is meant to help you recognize the misconception. Now, what is truth? Now, truth is a person. I repeat once again. Truth is a person. And that person comes into 4 ways. First, we've got the person of Jesus. 2, we've got the person of Christ. 3, we've got the person of the Holy Spirit. 4, we've got yourself. You are the 4th person here, because your responsibility is that of belief. You and I will agree that belief is what controls our world today. Belief is you accepting information as truth. So you have got the power to decide whether information is true or false. God gave you that power and He built it within you. So let's look at all these 3 persons and why all the 4 qualify to be sources of truth. Let's begin with the journey with Jesus. Now, Jesus, the greatest man who ever lived on this planet Earth, existed in Eden prior to the formation of man. Jesus was that garden God planted in Eden prior to the formation of man. Now, He had first-hand information about yourself. Now, God Himself commissioned Him to come in the world system to reconnect you to Himself. Now, Jesus Christ had to come in human form. Now, when He came down on the earth, He came with His vision, and His vision was Christ. He came to introduce the Christ that was stuck within you. Now, because of this vision, people began to call Him Jesus Christ. Most people know us by what we do. For example, when you look at computers, what will come into your mind is Bill Gates. Likewise, Jesus was also understood in that aspect. Because of His vision of introducing the Christ that was stuck within us, people began to call Him Jesus Christ. Now, those pagans of Antioch began to call the followers of Jesus Christians, because the vision was Christ here. That's why Christ is the foundation of the church, because that's the main vision here. Now, because of Jesus' earlier existence in Eden, prior to the formation of man, he qualifies to be called truth here. Not the tradition, but Jesus himself. It is not surprising to see that he told his apostles that if you abide in me and my words abide in you, you are my disciples indeed. He went on to tell them that he was the way, the truth, and the life. Why did he tell them that he was the way? Because he's the door that connects us to the building. Now the building is God himself. Jesus is the door that lets us into the building. Now the door is not the building, but something that is part of this building. Do you understand that? Why did he say he is truth? He is truth because truth is a person. And in this regard, he was reflecting to himself because he was the source of truth. Why did he talk of life? Because he came to connect us to the source of life. And that was the Holy Spirit. So Jesus, as a person, was truth. 2, let's look at the person of Christ. Now, God himself sat in a meeting, and that meeting, he had the Holy Spirit, he had Christ, he had Jesus. They sat down and had this roundtable discussion. And they put the contents of their discussion in the book of Genesis 1:26. They said, let us make man in our own image and likeness. They were very interested in knowing the end point of man. Now, after that discussion, they said, let's put man to be in charge of all other beings and creatures on the earth. So heaven became the headquarters of the earth. The earth was an extension of the kingdom of heaven. You and I were given dominion over the earth. That's why the Bible describes us as gods on the earth. Now, when God built you and I, he designed you to depend upon the person within. Now, at the beginning of his creation, he began by creating the Holy Spirit. Now, he built the Holy Spirit within Christ and placed Christ within Jesus. So when you come into Eden, you come into direct contact with Jesus. And you benefit from all these 3 sources. Now, Christ is comparable to a library. Everything that God built within you, everything related to your assignment was built within Christ. So without knowledge of Christ, you can never know your assignment on this planet Earth. You always rely on a misconception. Now, the Holy Spirit was designed as the sat-navigation of truth. Now, a sat-nav helps us to know the direction of a point of interest. In this regard, the sat-nav connects us to Christ. Now, Christ was our library that had every resources we needed. Now, the great apostle Paul, who lived in those days, had this to say. He said, you must have the mindset of Christ. Why? Because he understood that Christ was the library here. Now, when you get into connection with Christ, you become a new creation. And the old things pass away. That was the message of Jesus. He came to connect us to the Christ that existed within us. So every information that we want to rely upon in this world was built within Christ. And that Christ was placed within you. Now, you cannot access this information without the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit is that circumnavigation of truth. He is the only person who connects you to the door of heaven. And once you reach the door automatically opens. Now, you are the fourth person here. Now, for the past 2,000 years, you've been relying on information from the world system. Now, God never created you to depend on this information. He built you to depend on the person within. So you are in a crisis today because you have trusted an external source. That's why I'm saying truth is a person, and that person is yourself. You have got the decision to accept information as truth. Now, all your information that you needed on the earth was built within you. It is the reason why in Eden there was no educational system. In Eden there was no banking system. In Eden there was no religion. Why? Because God had built man with a system within, and that system was Eden. Next week, we are looking at the concept of information. Now, the reason why we are going to look at the concept of information is to help you understand the background of your crisis. I guarantee that your life and that of your family will never remain the same again. God bless you, and thank you so much for watching, and see you next week.